Hi, friends. Welcome to another episode of the 10 Laws Podcast with East Forest. I am Mr. Forest to the East. Thank you so much for joining us this week. This week, I have a conversation that we recorded live. We don't do that very often where we do the live podcast, but it might be fun to do more of this in the future. But this is a Radha Krishna Roundtable with my dear partner, Marissa Radha Wepner. And we were at the Treefort Music Fest, and they had a podcast stage, as they have many wonderful stages and outlets and forts throughout the festival, and one of them was this podcast stage. So we went in there, and there were some folks in there that we got to have a little bit of a Q&A. So we did our best, like when someone, we called it answers and questions, because I'm always being coy that way. But when people gave us answers or questions, we did our best to repeat them so that when you're listening now, you kind of have a little bit of a sense of what was going on. But it was fun. It's a different way to do the pod, and I think you're going to dig it. So the In album has been out in a soundtrack for the Psychedelic Practitioner Volume 2, which is essentially sort of a follow-up to Music for Mushrooms, which I consider the Volume 1. And the In album is 2 hours. There's also the 2-hour video version of the entire In album where I strapped a camera on the front of my truck and we drove from my spot in southern Utah right out of my driveway, if you call it a driveway, and we drove at dawn all the way down the road, all the way down to Lake Powell. And it was from my spot to the edge of the water where the camera pulls right up onto the lake was exactly 2 hours, which is exactly the length of the album. So it felt like this beautiful synchronicity, and you can check that out on YouTube. And we also launched this new platform, Journey Space, that I mentioned, but I just want to tell you again, go to journeyspace.com. It is a new online platform to musically guide journeys with live facilitators. And we're doing our first launch event on December 4th. And that is going to be a live stream concert that you can join as part of Journey Space if you want to have a live guided journey. That's a smaller group. But the live stream will be available for anybody in the spirit of the gift. So this is similar to the live streams that I did earlier in the pandemic. We did 5 of those. Getting back into that game, so to speak, and tying it with this new platform, Journey Space. And, Journey Space really came from those ceremonies that we did in the early pandemic. I mean, that's the only reason we did those. And out of that, we discovered that, hey, this is kind of an interesting, there are certain advantages to this. And it increases the reach and the accessibility. And we decided to see if it's something we could offer to you. And so that's what this platform is and this experimentation. So check it out, journeyspace.com. So we're going to dive into this conversation. Just thank you so much to everyone on our council, patreon.com/eastforest. That's folks who are going deeper with the podcast and supporting things in a deeper way. We sometimes have podcast extras and unreleased music in our monthly Zoom council. So check that out, plus all of our other stuff going on at eastforest.org. All right, guys, let's dig into this. This is a Radha Krishna Roundtable with my partner, Marissa Radha Wepner, at the Treefort Fest in September of 2021. Well, welcome to the 10 Laws Podcast with East Forest. This is Marissa Radha Wepner of Love, Service, Wisdom. We have decided to join forces. She's supposed to be next. And we do joint podcasts from time to time. So we thought, let's do that now.
Let's join up.
Yeah.
We call it the Radha Krishna Roundtable.
Not because of, those are our, familiar names that our friends call us, Krishna and Radha. And so hence the Radha Krishna Roundtable. But just to give our listeners who are in the metaverse in the future right now, who will be listening to this, a sense of space, we are in a conference room with beautiful fluorescent lights after a long weekend of festivaling. Yeah, with lovely conference room carpet with a beautiful yellow pattern. and an audience of, I'd say, what, 300?
Yeah,
It's
at
nuts.
least. At least
Yeah.
it's crazy.
I mean,
welcome
there's
everyone.
a din from the crowd right now, but these are very isolated microphones. So, but
This is part of Treefort as well. So thanks, Treefort, for having us.
the story that goes nowhere. Yes. Yeah, but thank you. That's my story that goes nowhere. But thank you to Treefort. Who are our hosts? Whose vision is this? Wonderful. Is this happened last year? Is this the first year?
It was supposed to happen
Wonderful.
last year. And
Well, you're
what's
right.
this year?
Not much happened last year. So we don't have a microphone in the audience, but what we could do is, if y'all want to be part of this conversation anyway, you can you can ask us questions, and we can use that as a launching pad, but you can
Yeah.
also shout out themes or, that's something you want us to get into. If you happen to know either of our shows or worlds, we'd be happy to do that. Otherwise, we have plenty of things to get into as well.
We call it an AUA. Ask us anything. Ask us anything. So open door to the Radha Krishna Roundtable. Anything come to mind first?
Hold on, we need to quiet this massive crowd. Hold on, everybody. All right. Yeah, please take your seats,
One
everybody.
One at a time.
Okay. No, seriously, I'm really happy you guys came. It's been, we're pretty tired. She's one of the, on the artist committee, so we're like all over the place seeing shows, and then
But one of us is all over the place seeing shows.
Yeah, and then performing shows. So it's, as you get to Sunday, it's a lot. But what have you guys been coming? What's been coming up in your minds and in your hearts this weekend?
How to ground. Have you been to Yoga Fort? Yeah. Did you go yesterday to our class? It was
one day
really
this year.
grounding. It was 10:30 a.m. Well, I got up at 6:30.
It was 10:30 to 5 p.m.
That hurts.
So, yeah.
But we created Yoga Fort. That's my sub fort too, in addition to being on the artist committee, so that you could ground at the festival, because I feel you. Saturday morning, before I was supposed to be teaching, and he's performing for me, which is so wonderful and such a gift, I just felt like I almost felt like I'd never been more ungrounded. I'm about to get on stage and give everybody grounding. I think I pulled it off. It felt really, really good. But festivals are hard. You're tired. You're not eating well. You're drinking a lot, perhaps, or not enough. And there's so much stimulation, I think, too, particularly now, after coming out of isolation, right? That we get fried. We get really overstimulated. So it's tricky. So you want to ground. Well, that feels like a great opportunity to ground together. You want to breathe for a moment? Does that feel good? Okay, cool. Let's do it. You guys open to this? All right, let's ground. That's what we should have done anyways from the beginning. So thank you for the reminder. It's really nice to do something grounding when you're beginning, because you all are, and ourselves included, coming from somewhere else, right? Like this is a transition moment. So to help yourself arrive and ground, you honor that you're transitioning and you get present. So simple, easy way to do it is orient to the space that we're in, which East Forest helped us with a little bit by describing it. So we're here, and then we notice our external environment, and then we begin to bring it into our internal environment. And you just start by feeling your seat and your feet on the ground. And you could close your eyes if you'd like, or just have a soft downward gaze. Closing your eyes is a helpful cue because you're having an inner experience. So you take your gaze inward, and then you're just feeling your body sitting. That's it. Yeah. And then feel your breath. You don't have to breathe any special way. You just watch your breath. That's all. Breathing in and breathing out. It's happening. Be with your breath. And then feel where in your body your breath travels to, or how your body responds to your breath. So you're watching the rise and fall of your chest, or maybe movement in your belly or your shoulders. And then that's it. Now you're feeling your body. And if, as you notice your body, anything wants to shift or adjust or move, do it. Notice how you feel too, your emotional state. How do you feel day 5 of a 5-day festival? And let yourself have layers of emotions, different ones together. Notice your breath again. Take a deep breath in through your nose. And out the mouth, sigh. Just let the breath drop out. Good. And then breathe in again. And out the mouth, and you blink the eyes open. Good. And then a little bit more for your body. Just kind of like brush down your arms like this. Like you're brushing away energy from the dance floor that wasn't yours and you got picked up. Like just you give yourself a little like energetic shower. Down the legs and the hair and the face. Roll the shoulders a little bit. I even like to like tap my body, my chest, belly, thighs. Does that feel better? A little more grounded? Okay, a little more grounded? Cool. Thank you.
There's a good recognition that grounding on a certain level is a choice.
It is a choice.
You know, like sometimes we think grounding needs to arrive to us. And
why am I not grounded?
Yeah, and certainly certain things ground us, but it's a further acknowledgement of the different avenues of choice we have for things like grounding and for calming and for opening our inner wisdom, and how maybe in some ways that initial choice is a kind of invitation that is necessary to open these states.
An easy way to begin to ground too, like you're doing now, is stop moving. You know, like you guys just get this little bit of time in a chair sitting. You're not traveling from here to there, which is nice. And it's relatively peaceful in here, so it's good. It'd be nicer if we were outside or something and got some sunshine, some breeze, but this works. This works. For those of you that are just joining us, East Forest, 10 Laws Podcast, Marissa Radha Wepner, Love Service Wisdom Podcast. This is the Radha Krishna Roundtable, and we're inviting you
Square
in
table.
with an AUA, Ask Us Anything. So you can ask us questions, which is how we were just beginning. So any questions out there?
Or you could provide the answer.
Or themes?
And we'll come up with the question. Yeah. Anything else you want to shout out? There are no mics out there, so you just have to give us something you want to get into before my mind dives into a certain subject. Going once.
Yeah. 10.
That would be amazing. Just put your hands up and jazz hands. We're like, jazz hands.
And go. This isn't an improv class, though
like-
I do fancy
it's
myself
awesome.
a comedian.
No, sorry. 10 what? 10 laws. 10 laws. Why 10 laws? Oh my
great
gosh.
question.
Oh boy.
Are you going to tell us?
I'm listening.
Oh,
Who knows? Who knows
Wow.
out in the audience a 10
Test.
law?
I don't expect anyone to have this by memory.
Does anyone know one of the 10 laws?
Protect your feet.
Yeah, girl.
That's
Always
number-
protect your feet.
That's number 2.
Who else knows the 10 law? Always
know where good water or source is. Number 3. Yeah.
always be ready for cold.
Always
got
be
3
ready
down.
for heat. Yep.
That's 4. That's 5.
Yep.
I didn't hear 5.
Always
Always-
get the job done. That's actually not the 5th, but
We skipped right over 1.
Yeah,
wait,
we're going backwards.
He's
I'll
saying
give you
the
the
order
whole-
in which they're listed from 1 to 10, but we've listed 5 so far. Who else knows one?
Always master the skills necessary.
Yes, sir.
Which comes before always get the job done, because you master the skills necessary, you can get the job done. I tell always master the skills necessary, and then always get the job done, which is one that I tell Maya,
That's
the
our
stepdaughter,
18-year-old
who's 18. I'm
teenager.
like, you gotta get the job done. You mowed 90% of the yard. You know?
Good luck, teenagers, getting the job done. Who else knows of one of the laws? We got a couple left.
Always see the dangers first. It's number 1.
Always see the dangers first. Always disallow foolishness is one. And
Always know your place.
always know your place.
And the final, always rest whenever you can.
Whenever you can.
It's the hunter-gatherer's code of 10 that my friend Court Johnson recited to me. And he's someone that I sampled a long time ago, 13 years ago. And that sample became part of the first song I ever wrote for the East Forest Music Project. That's my nomenclature. And that's called 10 Laws. And so it also became the name of the podcast. And so it's sort of like he sees that his 10 laws as like his set of stars in the sky that he navigates by. It's kind of like if I have those are the things that are the most important to me in a sense. Like if I
Hunter
don't.
and Gatherer's Code of 10. Hunter-Gatherer's Code of 10 is the subtitle.
So he thinks if he doesn't have those, then it's unlikely anything else beyond that will have grounded meaning. And it's there as a form of inspiration for us to think about, what are the things in my life that are really important like those. Maybe some of them are the same. Maybe some of them are probably you come up with on your own. And it's kind of like the base level stars that you navigate your life by. And the Nautilus?
Now I see the 10.
There
There's
they
10
are.
stars. Yeah. Yep, exactly.
Who did the art?
Oh, that was this podcast art. His cover was done by James Lloyd, who does all the Treefort art. So it's the same artist
You
that
can
does
see a
all the
semblance
artwork
of Treefort
for this. James worked on that.
iconography.
Who's incredible.
Yeah.
So those are the 10 laws. Those are the great question. If you don't know, you're like, what? You little pinky in the air. What's that mean?
Disallow foolishness. Can you say some more about that?
Always
That's my favorite
disallow
one.
foolishness.
That one of the great
So manifest disallow.
manifest disallow.
Like, how would you not disallow?
Well,
Or
it's
how would
like
you
if
disallow?
someone is acting foolish or being a fool, it's also one way to say, I'm not going to deal with foolishness. It's a way of drawing boundaries, not just with others, but for me, with myself too, like not to be a fool or act foolish. I mean, there's other ways you could look at that.
When he wants to like piece out of a situation that we're in, he will say, always disallow foolishness.
Not
He's like, "Oh,
always, but I mean,
it's happened before.
I
several
try
times.
to be not judgmental, but it's like
No, but you're like, I'm disallowing foolishness. This isn't for me.
And it's good to have boundaries about like
Yeah.
energy vampires and stuff. It's like I can't do this, but thank you very much. But that's one of my favorites. Always disallow foolishness, not because it's like vindictive, because I think for me it's really valuable. And everyone's got their favorite here and there too. But anyway. But we can come back to further questions. So if you think of something, we'll give another opening there. But one thing I was thinking about. So last night I did a set at the Sanctuary that was more sort of ceremony style, and we've been back on the road doing some touring, and people have the opportunity to lie down at these events, and it's in the dark, and I think there's a certain expectation that it's going to be a space that's good for deep meditation and so forth. And I've noticed you look out into the audience, and I'm not condoning this or inviting it in any particular way, but some people are journeying. They're on medicine, plant
psychedelic
medicines of various sorts and ilks. And it puts me in an interesting position because I don't want, like, I'm not saying do this, don't do that, but I do want people to have a safe experience, whatever, for all people. And then I was at Yoga Fort yesterday, and I was wondering for you, did you notice or think that there's anyone like the psychedelics move more into this sort of mainstream experimenting, accepted area. Do you feel that vibe from anyone at Yoga Fort?
What's your question exactly?
Was anyone tripping during our set at Yoga Fort when I was playing music? Because did it bleed into Yoga Fort?
No, I don't feel like anyone was tripping during our class at Yoga Fort. But when I've played at festivals, when it's more like open festival environment, we're all camping, like we're all like living in the same place together, basically. Like here, we're all going to hotels or homes or whatever. And like you said, it was relatively early. So to get to our class,
you'd have to be up all night.
Yeah, but at festivals, there's definitely those folks in our crowds. We've had those before, like naked.
How do you feel about it? Do you feel comfortable
great.
with it? Or?
No, it doesn't bother me at all. I like one of the reasons that I do yoga classes at festivals is to give a safe grounding container that helps to clear people, particularly if they're really open. And I've had experiences having taught where folks come up to me after the class and they have been up all night or, on various sorts of medicine in different states. And they're so grateful to have come to a place where they can feel safe, protected, get clear, like love bomb, beautiful, gorgeous energy versus like bass in your face, bass, crazy, dirty, blah. They get out of that.
Bass in the face. Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's a safe place, and it certainly happens, and it's a clear intention of mine in providing these classes in these environments.
I think where my concern comes from is maybe I'm projecting it from my own experiences in my past when I felt ill-prepared or didn't have certain kinds of experience that gave me caution. And when you're in these public spaces and you think like people taking risks with these substances in a way they didn't intend. And next thing you know, they're in this avenue where they need some assistance or help. And is that support there? And I'm just noticing as like there's so much happening in this space with psychedelic decriminalization and decrim nature movements going around, that we're in this like middle ground where some people are really bringing it into the public space where they kind of assume. We got messages where people assumed that as part of the ticket price, it included a psychedelic, and I was like, what universe do you think I can pull that off? Notice like, you mean it doesn't? Like, wow, the value isn't quite there.
Well, you have to understand that you have a reputation.
For what?
For mushrooms and for leading mushroom journeys. You do that, but you do it in the underground. It's not a ticket. It's not a ticketed event. But so you're merging things, and so for somebody it might be confusing. Like, is this something that will include that? I don't know, so I'm going to ask.
Well, it does not. The reason is one, of course, the legality, but the bigger reason is because I really feel if you're stepping into that kind of space with people, you need to bring a level of care and infrastructure to help them through the full picture of the experience. Preparation, information, understanding who they are and their body and their mindset.
That's if they don't know what they're doing, for the most part.
Well, I'm just saying, I think it's a responsibility of someone who creates that invitation as any kind of facilitator to sort of hold that hand as much as you can, to make it as safe as you can. Now, you don't control all aspects. You never can. But you can set the stage in such a way that we're setting it up for as much positivity and success as possible.
Mm-hmm. I think right now it's just in a gray area where it has been for a long time. I mean, music and psychedelics or altered states of consciousness go together really, really, really well because you enjoy the music and the experience on a much deeper level. Has anybody else experienced that? Am I alone in this? Okay, great.
Wow, now it's 400 hands in this room. This is getting nuts.
But you know what I mean? And you guys, you're self-regulating. You're going at your own pace. But a little bit of an enhancement with music is, like transcendent. Transcendent. That's, I think, why most of us are here, because we've had a moment personally with music, particularly live music, that's just, there's nothing that can replace it. It's so good. It's so good. And no one's explicitly saying, this isn't like a Grateful Dead festival, that this is what's happening. Everybody just makes their own choices.
Which I'm totally in for people making their own choices. I think I just have this weird helper mentality where I really just want to help. And I, for some reason, maybe I've just seen so many outlier cases where I'm just like, I would wish that people don't have to go through those outlier
you're
cases.
Helping. You playing at the sanctuary last night, like even if just one person came to drop into themselves and lie down and rest and ground and go internal while we held space, that's helpful.
Fair enough. So anyway, that's been a new landscape to work through as we've been getting back on the road after a year and a half, 2 years. It was Australia. It was the last touring we did, and I was back in February, year and a half plus ago. So it's been hard and fast, like getting back into this, and it's been mixed feelings, mixed feelings. But what's been coming up for you in this Treefort as you're getting back? I know it's always kind of a cauldron of emotions and highs and lows and depletion and energy. It definitely stressed. Do you all find that Treefort can stress relationships? Or is that just us?
We do really well.
We're human beings. We do great. We always walk into it like, okay, Treefort is starting. Let's just be conscious that it's intense. And there's going to be moments where we're depleted, and there's going to be moments where we're super tired. And let's bring our A game, and let's get ahead of it. And let's do what we can to support each other. And we do. But
I think
we do get
great.
tired, and we do get...
I think we do great. But it's hard all around, and it's I think again it's we do it because we love it. We almost can't not, and it's just so exciting to listen to live music again and be in community again and be around the arts and creativity again. It's this. I missed it. I've missed it a lot, so it's felt fantastic. And having been involved with Treefort personally since the very beginning. It's like family. I've missed my Treefort family. It's so good to see everybody. And Boise in particular has such a sweet community. It really does. So many loving folks that really care for each other. Even if we don't know each other, there's a sense that we have each other's backs. It's just great. I think it's super special. So to finally get together again feels really good.
Yeah, no, it's ecstatic, and it's a very sweet feeling here, and it always has been. Well, let's see if we can open the floor back up for our AUA. Is that what you call it?
Yeah,
AM?
ask us.
Right. Answer us anything.
I don't have an answer, but I do have a question.
Yes.
Hit us. I'll repeat it.
So maybe as you're creating music in that environment with people where they're kind of feeding off of what you're putting out there, how much are you taking back from what they're giving that influences the creation that you're making?
So the question, as I'm hearing it, is how much does the audience's energy, so to speak, feed the music in the live space?
Right.
Very much so. And, I used to, like everybody, went to shows in music for a long time growing up. And it wasn't until I started performing in this particular way with the East Forest Project that I really realized how critical what you're talking about is. Like, if you can have a whole sea of people giving you their attention, and there's one person in front of you on their phone with their back to you, and it just feels like all the energy goes, into that, and you're like, I just want to get out of here. I just want to walk out. And it's amazing too, when you see sort of all those faces, you can see a phone lighting someone's face. You can see it. It's so odd. It's but when in the audience, you think I'm anonymous. I'm just kind of, and you may be doing something completely important, to communicate with someone. And it's just these assumptions that we make as performers, or that I've made, and I've heard friends in the field make. And so the other polarity of that being that when, I've tried to ask audiences to say, hey, I'm asking you to give me the gift of your attention because it's really what it is. And this idea that your attention is your currency. Tristan Harris I think if you guys saw Social Dilemma on Netflix, he's a wonderful thinker in this space about technology and information and what it's doing to us. And when he said that, I believe it was him who said that phrase, it really rang true for me, because these days that seems to be our biggest currency and our biggest power. And it's what's really being vied for and monetized. So if you recognize beyond it being a literal currency, inside those kinds of spaces, like if you're looking for a kind of energetic transference and transcendence, you really want something from that performance, the best thing you can do is to just be there with it, pay attention and just be present with it. And
then it gives to you.
It's an energetic exchange. I
Yeah.
don't know how to explain it.
Yeah.
And I've just seen it through. It just happened with the John Hopkins thing with John, and I was the audience, and he said it like afterwards. You know, when he did that piano piece.
Oh, it was amazing. You're just reminding me. There's a Hopi elder I was with many, many years ago, and he asked the question, what do you give God, who is omnipotent, omnipresent, has everything? What do you give to something that is in everything? And the answer is your attention. That's the only thing that you can give, is your personal attention. And so in these experiences, with live music or performances, it is active participation and active listening. And you as a listener get so much more out of it when you're paying attention to what's being given to you by the performers. And then it's amplified with the sounds and the vibration, and then maybe the lights or the art that's happening too. Again, it gets into those really transcendent moments. And for sure, the performer feels it too. And then you can create this beautiful feedback loop. I think the great performers that we know are that way because they can really harness and capture attention that the audience wants to give it to them. And then it just elevates and gets bigger and bigger. So I think folks realizing that they have a role in it, that it's not fully passive. And like he said, he's gotten really good. We were with a guy the other day that said, yeah, East Forest, you're just known for demanding attention when you perform.
I hope I'm not that rude.
He said
but coaxing, cajoling.
Well, asking for it.
Yeah.
Asking for it and saying, this is what I want from you as an audience. It helps me to give to you when you pay attention to me, and just kind of stating it. And then we're in these experiences musically that I've witnessed as such a gift, where the audience is actually quiet and moving gracefully and mindfully about the space and aware of their own energy, and also aware that other people are having an experience that I might not know what's going on for you, but I'm going to be respectful of it. I'm not just going to blah, blah, blah right next to you. We were at a show at the Linen Building. Oh, it was Trash Fence, late night on Thursday night. And he was near the back wall. And there was somebody right behind us just talking. I'm like, I can't stand here in front of talking guy. I have to get back into the crowd.
It's the equivalent of the bouncing beach ball for you. She hates those bouncing beach balls, Feels like
they give me trauma.
Danger.
I'm afraid something large is about to fall on my head and hurt me. I can't drop in and relax when a ball is coming at me.
They might pop around us. I don't know how. The John Hopkins event we played in Austin last week, we played a playback of his album, and at the end of that, he came up and did an improvisation on the piano. And I remember watching...
Well, the album is called Music for Psychedelic Therapy. And one track was just released, Sit Around the Fire. That's with East Forest and Ram Dass and John Hopkins. And the whole album doesn't come out till November. So we played this really special concert where the whole album got played for 200 people. And John Hopkins was there, but he didn't perform. It was just a listening playback. And then right at the end, there was a grand piano on the stage. John got on the stage to quietly sneak on and then play this piano set.
But it was really, I was talking to him about it afterwards, and I said, man, I could tell it felt really tapped in for you. He says, absolutely, it just flowed out. And I remember we talked about this. I said, I could feel being in the audience, how I know what that feels like in the other side, where because the audience is so in that moment energetically with you, you're feeling like you're just channeling all that energy into the music, because they're so with bated breath, just right there, and you're just kind of give into that process. And so it's nice to hear that echoed in another artist. But thank you for that answer. More questions that we have from your answers, a wise one. Yeah.
I'm curious, because it seemed like you were sort of like bothered by maybe what happened last night. Maybe there were too many people that were on psychedelics or something. Or
Did you feel that way?
Well, I'll answer. Go ahead.
well, you were questioning whether that was a positive thing or a negative thing, maybe in some way. And I just am curious because I feel like maybe you've done some ceremonies that are a little more intentional, and if you feel that same way versus like here at Treefort, where people from all walks of life, and it is more of a party scene.
Right. Well, I wasn't bothered, and I should clarify. But you're right. In the past, I've only done ceremonies that were kind of hyper intentional, and so maybe what I'm voicing is my own growth and discomfort in like because I previously would feel very responsible as sort of the captain of this ship. Okay, I'm going to steer this ship for the next X number of hours, and in situations like last night, what I appreciate about it is that, well, anybody can walk in. It's extremely inclusive, and you can just sort of approach this how you want and make it what you want. And I think that's fantastic. But I recognize it brings up something uncomfortable. It's unfamiliar to me about how do you steer this ship when people are hopping on and hopping off, and I don't really know who's here. And that's not at all a bad thing. I just recognize that's a growth edge for me that I want to lean into, because my real goal is finding ways to make these experiences accessible and meaningful in a way that can meet lots of different people. And I don't have all the answers for that, but I have to learn by doing. What did you feel?
Last night?
Yeah, I mean, or with this sort of idea, subject matter.
I feel I witness that it's a growth edge for you, that you want, and it comes from a really good place. You want to be safe. You want to do harm reduction, right? And so if you just open things up and say, like willy-nilly, everybody come and do whatever they want, things could get crazy. But, recognizing that people will choose to experiment with non-ordinary states of consciousness in different ways with different substances, that they're making that choice. And so in the harm reduction framework, if you offer something that could be supportive, I think that that's a really good thing without saying anything explicitly, but people knowing that this could help you, then that's very, very valuable.
Well, and it's interesting, too, that you use the word like ceremony concert. And I guess I have to recognize that word ceremony means many different things to many different people. Some people assume you get some kind of medicine as you walk in. Some people think more like religious ceremonies. Some people might think who knows what. And that's somewhat intentional, too. It is broad. But I just find this idea of modern ceremony, or how does ceremony mix into our lives, or what aspects of ritual and ceremony are asleep in our lives, and how can we use it as a sort of old technology that is present, but bringing more light to it. It's like, how can this actually, the things that are already around us to help us walk this walk in this crazy time that we're in as a people. In a world that is deeply transitioning into a new, like molting an entire skin into a new way of being over decades and generations. And we are right in it, and I can feel it. I know you all feel it. And it's at a point where it's completely self-evident and revealed, and it's unknown, what that new skin looks like. But I think what podcasts and all these different conversations and answers and questions are about is trying to tell these stories about what could it look like? What does it feel like? What are we learning? What are we not learning? And let's make mistakes and pivot and try something else. There's not going to be one answer. And so my interest is in helping us get into that inner knowledge that we all have. I think it's like you were kind of talking about grounding so we can hear it and clear away that noise.
Yeah, yeah. And, in regards to the ceremony concert, too, he's performing, right, and steering the ship. And 99% of the ceremony concerts, I've been there, too, and a part of it, but in another, implicit way, where I create the altar, I clear the space. I'm actually observing everyone in the audience and going through the audience and
The
like
ninja space holder.
Yeah, like ninja space holder the whole entire time, start to finish, that people don't even know it's happening. Some folks do, but most don't. And in that way, I'm literally out there with everybody. Everybody's cool. Everybody, every single one, knock on wood, every single
Gracious.
ceremony, everybody's been fantastic. Everybody. There's never been any kind of issue, ever. Never.
Just things like you start playing and then someone stands up like right in front of you and starts doing like the interpretive dance thing. And you have to go over after a bit and be like, this is awesome, but you know, maybe you could do it just on the outside of the circle. And they're always like, cool.
Because what is that? That's an energy suck, right? Like that, like is drawing attention from this to interpretive dancer. Now that's like super distracting for everybody else.
It's like having an animal on the stage. If there's a cat or a dog, everyone watches the cat and the dog. It's like more interesting just doing sleeping. Oh, look, the dog moved. The dog's walking across the stage. Yeah, that's an old theater. No. Yeah, another answer.
Kind of just thinking about what you all are talking about, and I didn't stay up as late as your show last night. But I'm curious, especially in the sort of festival atmosphere, like where there's people coming and going, at your shows, do you kind of really want to create this container of like, come before it starts, stay through the whole experience, or did you have a flow of in and out? And how does that affect how you guys hold space and just kind of the experience?
Would you repeat the question?
Yeah, she's asking about holding space in a festival environment where people come and go versus a ticketed experience where you're going to sit there the whole time and be there the whole time. And it's definitely different. And like last night, you know, he's like, nobody's going to come and it's going to be an empty room and this is going to be that. Blah, blah, blah. And we have like, he's got like the ceremony that he typically does. There's a framework. And right before it began, he's like, I'm just going to improvise. And he did the whole time and was completely different than what you have been doing besides the Headwaters show that we did down in Boulder. And I thought it was beautiful and amazing. And I loved what you did last night. But it happened because it was almost like you realizing you didn't have control over what it might be. So we didn't do typically any of the things that I didn't speak or set the ground rules or like go over things like we always do in every other case. He just went for it last night.
But I think you learn like over the years the hard way. And you don't know until, you know, we all learn like, oh, I don't want that. I don't want to do it that way again. And so over time, there's like all these things that so if I have, you know, my druthers, if it's like that, some of the events we did last week were pretty much how we'd want it to be done. We have a program. So in the program, that kind of takes care of some of the housekeeping stuff and sort of even expectations like, hey, if you're going to go to the bathroom, just kind of move with some grace and and we're going to use some sense in the room. So, you know about that and that kind of stuff. But I find it, and maybe it's just my personality, but really valuable to kind of have that conversation and say like, hey, here's what I'm going to offer. And here's what I would love from you. And maybe if you have any questions, you know, and it's kind of you ever notice like you walk into a room, maybe even today, like you come in and we're all just kind of waiting to understand the rules of the game. Like what role am I supposed to play? And we choose to do it usually or we not. But we're waiting for that invitation. And it taught me like it's helpful to fill people in and just invite them. It's like, how about we do this? And they're like, okay, you know, as opposed to like, you got to figure it out. And we have that. And that in itself is a kind of ceremony. It's like the form tells us, you know, what we're going to be doing. Like even the way we set this up, right? Mm-hmm. Like we're on this up higher than you guys. And so now it creates a kind of energy. Whereas the ceremony concert's intentionally in the round. So there isn't this proscenium where it's like, oh, am I part of this? I'm in the room. We're all in this thing together. And so that in itself is a kind of technology of ritual. So
yeah.
Does that answer Does that question your answer?
What he's speaking to too, you know, when you give the ground rules, like you say, like when you're in communication about expectations on both sides, then it creates a container of safety because you know what to expect.
And then you
if
can
I
go
know
deeper.
Exactly. Then you can go deeper because you know what the rules are. And so then as a participant, you can then let go more, which is what we want to have happen. So it's really, there's a reason that that's done too, to create a feeling of safety.
I mean, we don't want you to be there and it's like you're an hour in, you're thinking, well, when do they come around and give us the dose, you know? And they're just waiting. That quick story, it reminds me of when I went to Machu Picchu, once and only, amazing trip. And we worked with Cucho, Juan de God, the shaman of Machu Picchu, who we were recommended to work with. And it was this amazing sequence of events that it could even happen. And we finally meet him, and we go to Machu Picchu in the morning. And for the first 4 hours, it's a tour. Like he's taking us on a private tour. This is my former partner and I. And it was an amazing tour. It was sort of all the secret spiritual stuff of Machu Picchu, and incredible. But I thought to myself, I assumed we were going to do a San Pedro ceremony today at some point. And I'm like, maybe it's not. Maybe we're just going to do this tour.
So the whole time you're thinking,
I
where's
was
the
a little
San Pedro?
distracted, yeah, because he never defined it. And then, 4 hours in, we were walking kind of above the Inca Trail, and he just started pushing these bushes aside, and we just sat down. He pulls out the San Pedro, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we're going to do this right here. And I suddenly realized that a lot of people don't look up. No one really just looked up above the Inca Trail like this and noticed there were people up there basically meditating. And it was a beautiful, beautiful experience. But he taught me many things to do in ceremony, but also I find that experientially, when you work with others and kind of see their style, you get to pick up maybe I'd like to do it like this or like that. And I'm half German. I just like things to be clear, or at least mostly clear. And so I like it to be I just can just spell it out. But thanks for that.
Any other questions? Anything you want to ask?
Well,
Yeah.
answers.
Yeah?
Curious about your field recordings, and if you still do that, or how often you like to do it, and what inspires you to do
Field recordings. How often? Why? Yeah. You have an answer? Yes.
Oh. We're both
Were we
of
both
us.
in the concert? Yeah. Sort of.
I did sing yesterday. I chanted at Yoga Fort and played the harmonium, and I felt like a rock star.
And she plays lots of percussion, like bells and stuff, walking around the room, because it's fun to have the sound moving around you. Mm-hmm. It's just playful. And field recordings, it started back when I was starting to get back into backpacking. I was living in New York City, and I was going through a lot of shifts and changes and discovering all sorts of new things and insights. And through that, I was just feeling really drawn to places that were wild. And first place I experienced that since growing up in Oregon was up in the Adirondacks. And it just had been so long. It'd been 10 years. And so there we are. I'm just feeling this vibe of just the space, just wilderness. And I wanted to get more and more of that. So I just kept going up and backpacking and getting into these spaces that felt really like a raw land diet. And I noticed that I was connecting to it through the sounds there. How many of you have heard a certain sound that ignites a kind of feeling in you where it kind of pulls you out of reality and you just feel so present? It's probably a few seconds, maybe longer, but it's a really beautiful feeling. Fall leaves, it's it just brings memories back to us probably, but something ineffable, the sound of certain kinds of rain. Certainly for me, all different types of crickets. I don't know why, but crickets, frogs, these kinds of things that are singular, but there's usually many thousands of them. They create, in the chaos of the sound, a kind of coherence in these waves that start to form. And it's a white noise that has patterns and unpatterns. And in that, it naturally entrains your brain if you pay attention to it. It goes back to our attention. So if you meditate to it, meaning just listen to it and just keep coming back to it when you drift, you will find that it opens something, and a lot of indigenous cultures would call it portal openers. And I think that's why it literally creates a trance. So I was recognizing that by recording these spaces, it really did capture an essence of the space, and it really did a feeling. It had an element of that same feeling I was feeling in the moment, much more than a photograph. I think that's why podcasts are kind of audio podcasts. It's very old technology if you think about it. It's like radio, but it ignites our imagination, and the imagination is a kind of doorway into the infinite, into the numinous, into our soul. And so those sounds, it's just another form of talking as sounds. It's like this purebred sound that it's part of who we are. You know, we are that space. We are nature.
So
walking and talking.
are you still recording, making field recordings?
Yeah, it's not like I go through waves, and I try not to like throw it on and use it in every album. It's just kind of like if it feels needed, like an instrument or a band member. It's like, does this need some cricket?
We were out the other night, and all those crows in the tree, remember that sound?
In Austin, yeah, a bird I'd never heard before. It was really, really loud.
It was like 100 crows in a tree.
It wasn't a crow. It had a
They
special
weren't
name.
crows?
Yeah, well, it had a
Oh, they
special
look like
something
crows.
that's just down there.
But it was the craziest sound of just like all of these birds talking together, like at a party. Literally, there was like 100 of them.
I'll see if I can pull up where you're talking. I'll
It
play on the
was,
mic.
and so we just stood under this tree on the side of the street. It was just like downtown Austin too. We weren't in the countryside or anything, and
Please
we
let this be
recorded
the right
for a
recording.
while.
Otherwise, it's going to be like me saying something really embarrassing. I mean, it's on the street, so there's a lot of noise. So I could filter some of that.
Did you hear all this?
Yeah.
You got a question down there? You don't like that noise? It was a little high pitched.
Well, and you know, sometimes I record things and it may not be used. But you know what's interesting? Sometimes I use sounds like that to create tension, and so that when it goes away, it creates a release.
yeah. So you listen to something that you don't like, and you're like,
It's like, oh,
and then when it stops, you're like,
and then,
So
Yeah.
a way to create a feeling of peace.
Yeah, it's important to have tension and release, because these are the things that echo what our human experience is. In and out, sleep, wake, tension, release, birth, death. And so I think all the things that sort of paint colors on that in a way, it's beautiful. It brings it reminds us of the poetry of what it means to go through all this horrible, sacred, and profane things we go through. Beautiful. Any more answers?
I saw you raise your hand again.
So I was just wondering, it sounds like you do a lot of collaborations with other musicians and other people who bring whatever they have to the mix. How is that experience for you compared to doing something solo in front of an audience?
It's collaborations, and how are they different, and so forth. They're awesome because like the last one was with John Hopkins, which is an artist that I've admired for a very long time. And so, I mean, what better thing is there? You see someone's work from the outside, and then when you work together, you're essentially now seeing it from the inside. And even better, it's like they might be taking something you've created and putting it through their machine, so to speak, their creative grinder, and the sausage that is made is delicious. You know, I had to say
Have you
that.
had collaborations that you didn't like what came out?
Yeah, of course. Of
Yeah.
course. And that's really hard because it's like breaking up in a way. And feelings can be hurt. But I think you have to have this attitude with creativity that you're just throwing spaghetti against the wall and you see what sticks. You got to make noise and not think about the results too much. And that's okay too. It's okay too for sometimes that. Yeah. Do you like collaboration? You love it.
I love collaborating. I do. I love collaborating.
That's
Yeah.
why you work on
That's why I
Treefort.
work on Treefort.
I mean, it's a huge
It's a big
collaboration.
exercise in collaboration. I feel like when I am rising, right, I kind of look around and I'm like, well, who do I want to bring along with me to work with me so that we're doing it together. It's just not me by myself. I want to do it with my friends so that we're, you get it. Yeah, you're shaking your head. So that's why I love to collaborate. So it doesn't feel isolating. It feels like a community give, and we each carry and have different skill sets. Like one of my besties, Celeste Bolin, who I do yoga for with, we're very different energetically, but we love each other and adore each other. We're both, not to toot my own horn, but pretty badass, like doers. Like I can count on her to get stuff done, and she can count on me too in a very high level way. But we do different things, and while she'll obsess over the spreadsheet and micromanage everybody, I'm
You're top level. Yeah.
no, I'm doing something different. Different set of details, and it feels great. It feels great when you can have and be in those good teamwork partnerships. And it's certainly not for everybody. There's nothing worse than somebody that's not doing the thing that they need to be doing for the team. That can be hard. And I love collaborating with you, and the work that I do. We call my role the magician's assistant.
I don't call it that. She does. It's much more than that.
That's how it feels sometimes.
Collaborating, what you're speaking to is sort of this beautiful karmic situation. Like you do have a natural way, and it's a wonderful reminder for me, by helping others do the thing that you do, it benefits everybody, typically and energetically. And it's a wonderful thing to remember, because it's not about like carving off your thing and siloing yourself off and people are just there to help you. It's like I always am looking for opportunities to help as much as I can while disallowing foolishness. But I'm serious. But recognizing, this is a great opportunity to help someone I've just met or a friend, and maybe they're trying to make music or whatever it is, some skill I can help them with. I'm like, I'd love to help you with that. And it feels great too. It always feels good to help each other. And then there's also just the recognition that really great things happen when people come together. It's very rare that anything is done alone that's really, really magnificent. Of course, there are exceptions, but generally speaking, there's a kind of magical risk involved with seeing what happens when you give something over and seeing if that group think something can glue it together. And sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But when it does, it's truly magical.
Yeah.
So let's do a couple more before we... Wonderful. In the back. How was the collaboration with Ram Dass?
How were you able to? Is that what you said? Yeah.
Well, how I was able to, gosh, I'll tell you the mechanics of it, but, people ask a lot, like, what that was like, and it feels very alive, even though Ram Dass is dead in his physical form. The whole process feels like it's unfolding still, and he gave us the names Radha and Krishna, and I watch how the recordings that he did over that week continue to be relevant for people and like have a life of their own. And it's amazing. And it's amazing to like be on a big sound system, like press a button and Ram Dass like, whoa, comes through, his big voice. And it feels alive. It feels very alive in that moment. It's a kind of digital immortality, in this weird way. He's like bifurcated himself out and fractalized into, millions of forms. I looked at the stats once of, there's a song on the Ram Dass album called I Am Loving Awareness with Krishna Das, and it's being played like always on the planet. It just means one person to one person, maybe 10, maybe 100 at one time, but basically it's always being played on the planet. And the planet's a big place. So on one level, that's not that amazing, but it is amazing. There's like this continual thread of that mantra, I am loving awareness, I am loving awareness, like bouncing around the planet.
Yeah.
I'm like, what a trip. I have nothing to do with that. That's just like what it is now. It's like germinating on its own life form.
But you did, in a way. I mean, going
Now,
back
though, I
to
feel like,
you asked like how was he able to, and it kind of ties into the field recordings that you guys asked about before. You folks asked about before, because when he asked Raghu if he could make an album with Ram Dass, he said, "Yeah, go through like the 50,000 hours of talks, and you can pull stuff out." And he said, "No, everything that I use on my albums is what I've recorded. I don't just download a Cricket and put it on. It's what has come through in the moment. So if I work with Ram Dass, it'd be important that I record him now." And he said, I really want to get him now too at this older age. Like, what comes through in this exact moment in time that will be his legacy that he leaves with. And that's what it is. So that's one of the hows. And Raghu then graciously said, "Okay, yeah, come to Maui then, and you can record him." And like Krishna was saying, have you guys been in one of the ceremonies with the Ram Dass music? Any of you all? Have you experienced it? Oh, it's so crazy. It's so good. Because it just feels like Ram Dass left his body a year and a half after those were recorded and the album came out. And so now it just feels like he's still here. And his teachings are being spread even further. Like Krishna is saying, it's always being played. It's like somehow East Forest was chosen to be in collaboration with Ram Dass to have this transmission of his voice continue on even after his death in the most powerful way. And the things that he said at the end of his life, often when you were just listening to him speak, it was somewhat challenging because with his aphasia, he might say, loving.
It'd be like 15
and then time
seconds
goes
or
by,
30
and then
seconds.
he says awareness. So as the listener, it's hard to somewhat pay attention when there's so much space. And so when he could take what he said and put it in the right, like perfect spacing with the music, it became much more listenable, let's say, than you might have been able to do just sitting and listening to him speak. So it's all hyper magical and beautiful and crazy. And I'm just blown away all the time. Like I said, I've been in almost all the ceremony concerts, and even still, when certain songs come on, like Please Pass the Bliss, I cry. It just touches me so deeply. Like the power of it. I don't know. It's just, even now, just thinking about it.
Have you all? I think it's the Robin Williams movie Awakenings. Is that the one where like people are in a catatonic states? It's an old movie, and they like wake up.
It's a 90s movie.
It felt like Ram Dass. I think we knew medically with his aphasia that his thinking was there, but he said it would have just so difficult to connect it to the words. But nonetheless, it was difficult to connect beyond just the pure energy, and that's what he got so open about. Was just his energy to you in the room was just hyper present and loving and just here and really loving you like I don't know you, but it's just pure loving awareness to you. And that was the greatest gift he gave me, was just showing me that and how we all can reflect that. But when you record him and you start to take out some of those pauses and you don't rearrange what he said, but now I can change the rhythm of what he said, and when you put it into the music, that little technological combination, it's like it was like the Awakenings. It's like he came alive all of a sudden. And not only did he come alive, but you suddenly realize, whoa, this guy is at the top of his game. Like 50 years of wisdom and being sardonic and talented and wise, talking
Poetic.
everywhere around the world. Yeah, deep poetry. And then but you could kind of lose it in his present life. And then in the music, it was just like I remember the first question I asked him was the song Nature on the album. I mean, pretty much what you hear is what he said. And I was nervous, right? And I asked him a question about, we're sitting there looking out the ocean in Maui on the North Shore. How do we use nature to just remind ourselves and get through all these problems and connect? And there's something in there for people, blah, blah, blah. What do you have to say? And he just leans back in his recliner, and he's working his beads, He's just looking at the ocean like this. And part of me was like, did he hear me? Or like, maybe he's like, not that, you know. And it's, you know, minutes. But I knew I'd have to be patient. And he's just sitting there. Who's heard that song, Nature, on the album? A few of you? I wish we could just play it.
Yeah.
Because it starts out like this. He just says, trees. And I hear trees. I'm, okay. And then he starts listing out things, you know, water, moon. And this goes on for minutes. He's all these things. And I'm just like, what's going on? You know, like, but I was like, this is cool, you know? And then he says, all are our friends.
Are us.
You know, and you hear the whole song. And then by the time you get to the end, it was a total mic drop. He finishes, then he looks at me, he's like, this are us, you know, nature is an emanation of God. Oh, he looks at me like, just like,
a smirk.
Next. And I was just like, whoa, this is going to be great. Like, this is gold. I said to him, this is gold. This is pure poetry. And he just laughs like, poetry. And it was. And then, you know, things like dark thoughts, that what he says in that's just what he said. And I was just like, it's like a 1 minute micro teaching that has all this that little arc of a story and imagery, sometimes some humor, like the one about psilocybin called Home. And he says, psilocybin is my friend. And I said, no, it's a great opening line. You know, it's a great way to, it's funny. I was just blown away that was the last recording teachings he did, as far as I know. And that not only did he get to do that, but we used music in this unexpected way so he could have the most impact with his skill set. And that will live on for generations, I hope. And where those teachings will continue. And the other thing I want to say is he got to choose, in essence, what he wanted to talk about. It wasn't me picking from all these talks and say what I think is relevant to today and what the time we find ourselves in. If you'd like to hear the rest of this conversation, we are sharing the rest of this podcast over on the Patreon, patreon.com/EastForest. For just a few bucks a month, you can be a supporter of the podcast, and we share stuff like, you know, podcast exclusives and extras like the remainder of this convo and other fun things, including our monthly Zoom council if you want to pop up to that tier and join us there. So go to patreon.com/EastForest and you can learn more about it. This song that you're hearing in the background is called Slip Slope, Octopus Spaghetti Pants, and it is from the In album that just came out. Wherever you listen to music, you can also get the entire In album in high resolution on a flash drive that we sell over in the shop at eastforest.org. That's the only place to get it in high res. We also include the Music for Mushrooms album and the Spores album all on that flash drive. The reason it's called Slip Slope Octopus Spaghetti Pants, it's a funny title, is because the energy of this song to me, they're all born out of the live ceremonies, improvisations. It felt very slippery, like you're going down some kind of rabbit hole, kind of purging energy to me. And when I am personally in that space and language is breaking down in my head, I have this phrase that keeps kind of representing that breakdown, and it is octopus spaghetti pants. It's kind of an absurdity of language that my brain is sort of throwing a jumbly soup of words together, and that's sort of where I'm like, oh, it's the octopus spaghetti pants zone, and this song represents that feeling for me. And shout out to Peter Broderick, because he was the one, when I sent him an early version of this record and he saw that title, he's like, you must include that title. It's too good not to. And I kind of chickened out because it's two titles, right? Slip Slope, parentheses, Octopus Spaghetti Pants. But hey, I got it out there in some form or another. Hey, thanks to y'all for listening. Check out JourneySpace.com and our live stream event on December 4th. And thanks to Radha for doing that conversation in Treefort. And we'll catch you all soon. For now, happy rest of your October. You keep walking your walk. Don't take any shit. And if you do it with grace.